nice thing about our program, which not all hospitality programs have this benefit, is that we're in the College of Business. And over the years, those of you who've been, I'm not sure who's in the audience, but those of you who've been in hospitality, who have worked in hospitality, it's viewed, of course, there's skills that you all are learning, which are very important to the foundational skills, but it's moving towards more being viewed as a business, like any other business. Whether you're in manufacturing or any service industry, but really hospitality and tourism is a business. You've got an asset that an investor invests in, whether that asset is a hotel or that asset is a restaurant or it's a club or it's a cruise ship or it's a casino. That asset costs millions and millions of dollars, right? And then it's handed over to a manager to manage, and you have to kind of work for that particular owner. That owner could be an individual, that owner could be a private equity fund, it could be a real estate company, it could be a high net worth individual, and you run it. So all the same kinds of courses that you would need for a business degree are in the hospitality business program. And so the way we've structured our program is that way. So I'm going to go to the next slide. So essentially what we've done is, if you decide to move on and then come to UTRGV and pursue a business degree, by the way, the program you're going through is a fantastic foundation for those of you considering going into the business route, because at its heart, I mean, food and beverage and the skill side, which you're going to be learning here at STC, is the basis. The other parts, whether it's management or it's marketing or it's finance or it's accounting, all that can be taught. But the way we've designed the program at UTRGV is, of course, going to take the core business classes, but then we've divided the program into really 4 different segments, or 4 different concentrations. So those of you who want to pursue the lodging accommodation side, there's a huge industry opportunity within that side. And so you can get into the operation side of that, or you can get into the investment side. So there's both sides to the accommodation sector. Then those of you who have an interest in food and beverage, I mean, there's a huge, as you know, a huge restaurant industry. It's not just restaurants, it's managed food services, it's, whether working in hospitals or even catering companies or event management companies. There's the whole food and beverage side. So there's a concentration on that side. The third one is what we call the destination, tourism, and event management. So that concentration is for those people who want to work as meeting planners, whether social meeting planning or business meeting planning, or even destination marketing. So, if you think about a place like South Padre Island, who's marketing South Padre Island? Who's marketing Texas? Who's marketing the United States or any country? There's careers to be had in marketing destinations, so those who want to get into that side, we have that opportunity as well. And the fourth one, which unfortunately is not showing up on this slide, is a very unique concentration that we are offering, and that's healthcare hospitality. More and more we're finding hospitals are realizing that besides just the patient care experience, where people have to actually go in and, obviously for surgery or some kind of a treatment, there needs to be this compassionate care. And so they're looking to actually hospitality and I guess in many cases luxury hotel settings to create that kind of a patient care experience. So there's positions now at hospitals called Chief Experience Officer, and those people actually work with nurses, they work with doctors, they work with the food and beverage staff, they work with the front desk staff to make sure that that whole experience that the patient has, and as you know, I mean, going into a hospital is already a nerve-wracking experience. You're not voluntarily checking in, right? So while you're there, if you can provide that kind of compassionate care, it helps. Now, why did that segment actually take off? Of course, there's the service element, but it was really driven by the Medicare payments. As you know, Medicare is a huge provider of payment to hospitals. And so now Medicare has linked guest service and quality of care with the billing to hospitals. So what hospitals have realized is unless we perform at a certain level, potentially we could lose out on receiving payment from Medicare. And so they realize that we need that. And so that helps us because they've started to look at hospitality companies or hospitality executives to kind of help them with that. So I think there's an opportunity for us in that area. Now, of course, that's not the primary focus of our program, but that's another one of the concentrations. So if you like hotels and you want to get into that space, there's an opportunity. If you like restaurants, food and beverage, there's that concentration. There's tourism, event planning, destination marketing, there's that concentration. And then of course healthcare, hospitality. And like I said, what makes our program strong is the fact that you'll still have a core business foundation. So what we tell our students who are in the program or considering our program is that yes, you'll have a hospitality and tourism bachelor's degree, but what you're really getting is a business degree. You're getting a business degree. Yes, you'll start in hospitality and tourism, but doesn't mean that you have to be in hotels or restaurants. If you want to broaden it out to other service industries, you're going to get into banking, you can get into retail, you can start your own company. So you'll have all the skills that will be given to you while you're going through the program. And what I like about this, link with STC is that you're already coming into the program with very strong core business skills on food and beverage. So that part is actually a huge help, particularly those who want to get into the food and beverage side of our business. Okay?
But one of the things, Dr. Singh, for example, is that when we talk about business, right? Everybody thinks business. Well, I'm not cut out for business. I know my students are like, well, yeah, I want to open up my own restaurant, but I'll hire someone to do the numbers. And I'm like, what? Why would you do that? That you are the numbers, right? So I'll tell you an example of food business and even the stock market, right? So we all know oat milk is big in demand. Oatly is a company that got a contract with Starbucks and recently lost their contract, so their stock just plummeted because they couldn't fulfill their demand, right? And that's manufacturing. So that's just, we understand there's a demand for oat milk, and we start there, right? Sorry guys, sorry. We start there, we start with the food. That's where you're at right now. You're understanding how to make oat milk or dairy alternatives, right? Right? So that's where you're at right now. Then you're gonna move on to understanding numbers and demand, supply, demand. How do we get people to buy oat milk, right? HEB will come up with an alternative to silk, right? That you can buy because it's in your price range. So they've done the marketing. Then you're moving it into stock, that's into business, that's larger, right? So you start with a foundation, just like Dr. Singh, you're at the foundation right now. So start thinking about these ideas. Well, I really like to vacation. Can you be a traveling chef for a hotel? You can work for the Ritz-Carlton and do opening hotels or do seasonal travel, right? So think about these possibilities and ask these questions like, can I do this? What is in this realm, right? This is what we're here for. Sorry, I just had to plug that in, make that connection, because sometimes we have to scale it to, but I don't even know how to make cookies from scratch. That's where you're at now, right? But we have to start thinking a little bit more big picture.
Super, absolutely. Okay, so moving right along, you're going to be taking a lot of classes here, and I'm going to not spend too much time with this, but if you do come to UTRGV, now obviously you've had a whole lot more of the food preparation classes that at STC than we're going to offer, because really as part of the business program our students only take one food prep class, because it's really, like I said, a business degree, but everybody who's in the program will take the intro class. Now obviously in your case, if you do come to UTRGV, there'll probably be a huge waiver of that because you've done a lot more than that. But these are the two introductory classes that we offer, which is basically Host 1301, which is really Introduction to Hospitality and Tourism. So all freshmen take that, and that's like a landscape class which introduces you to all aspects of hospitality and tourism. We bring in a lot of guest speakers in that class, so people start to actually understand what degree they're actually getting into. The other one is of food preparation and food safety and menu planning, taught by Chef Marcel, who's linked with your program. It's a basic introductory to food, but in your case, if you're coming from STC, most likely you'll get like a waiver of that because you've done a whole lot more than that. But those who have not, they have to basically take that as a introductory class. what I also tell students is that yes, we'll put you through a very rigorous core curriculum, which is strong foundational courses. You have a 600-hour internship that you have to do. You're going to take courses in hospitality marketing, hospitality finance, hospitality accounting, hospitality law. So you'll take all those classes. You'll do a capstone class, but a big part of the learning, as you realized even at STC, is outside the classroom. So what we encourage our students is to get very involved with the student clubs. And there's several clubs on campus. We do have a hospitality student club within our program. And a big part of that is to help students get their own personal development. So there's 3 or 4 key things, and I was hoping one of the club students could be here today, but class time, they couldn't come here. But they go to conferences, they take part in student competitions. We also have a mentorship program. I'm not sure how this one's structured, but essentially what we do in the mentorship program is called the Vaqueros Victor program. We match up a student who's interested in a particular field with a particular mentor, and they sign a 1-year contract. And essentially the mentee signs a contract and the mentor signs a contract, and they basically have to meet a certain number of times in a year. And at the end of that program, they're supposed to do a presentation on the learning. If they both like each other and they want to continue, they can sign another contract. So the whole purpose of that Vaquero Victor program is this way, while the student is going through the hospitality degree, they have at least one person besides the professors, an outside person who can be shepherding them helping them with internships, maybe even providing funding if they have to travel somewhere, coming in, speaking in class, and then at the same time, helping with interview skills and things like that. So we just launched that program, and it's actually being done through the student club. So the club for us is a very important part of the student experience while they're in school, and it'll help them develop personal skills. Now, what I put up over here are some of the other programs that are a lot more mature than ours, because our industry is so huge. Like when I was at Michigan State, we had not one club, we had several clubs depending on the student interest. So if you were interested in club management, they actually had a student club just for club management. If you're interested in hospitality real estate, you would actually have a club for hospitality real estate. If you're interested in meeting event planning, you would have a club on that. Now, we're not at that point because this program's not so big, but just to kind of give an idea that our industry is so huge that most of the mature programs will actually have individual clubs that will be catered to a particular segment of the industry. And so obviously at some point we hope to get to that stage. But broad picture, get involved in clubs. It help you with leadership, help you with a variety of other things outside of the classroom. Ultimately, we need to place our students somewhere, right? So you're going to get a degree, it's a professional degree, but you need a job at the end. So part of my job as a founding director is start to form affiliations with various companies, both in the Valley, in Texas, nationally. So what I do is I do travel, meet with a lot of hotel companies, restaurant companies, integrated companies. So some of the companies we've already started to get to campus are highlighted up here, and there's more in the works. So our industry is huge. I mean, hotels are a big part of our industry, food and beverages, but then there's also the affiliated services. So, when you see Cisco or Gordon Fruit Service, who are the suppliers to our industry? So maybe you don't want to be working for a hotel or restaurant, but there's companies that, clean linen. I mean, I just met somebody this week that's one of the largest linen cleaning companies, and they actually hire hospitality students because they've got to go out and sell to hotels and restaurants. So they're looking for people who have an understanding of our degree, of our industry, to actually be salespeople in those ancillary services. Another big part of our industry is the development and real estate side. So when I was at Michigan State, I was the director of the hospitality real estate program, because these are students who don't want to actually, or they prefer not to operate the business, but want to be on the finance and development side. So if you think about, who's building a hotel, who's doing the investment analysis, consulting companies that do investment analysis when a hotel goes up, who's making loans to hotels. So there's banks that have specific focus on hotel and restaurant lending. Who's asset managing, who's working for franchise companies in the corporate office, with Marriott franchise. They've got to sell, franchises. So there's the whole investment analysis side, which is very high paying side of the business. So people who are a little bit more analytically oriented, geared towards that. So some people start in operations and then move to that. Some people right from the get-go get into that. So within our industry, there's just a lot of broad opportunities. And so my job right now is obviously to build those relationships. As you folks are doing here with the mentor program, we're also starting to get more and more industry executives, because there's young people, 20 plus. They're not really sure. So these are just some examples of the types of people we've brought in, and now that the coronavirus is behind us, we'll get them here physically. But as an example, Mr. Juan Corvinos, he's originally from Spain. He went through Hilton's management training program. He's a young man, and now he handles all of South America and Caribbean for developing Hilton hotels. So he works with investors there. His job is to basically sell franchises and development deals and management contracts for them, But he started in operations. He went through a hospitality program, but now he's out there doing things like that. Miss Melendres Kampf, she started with McDonald's as a store manager, and then she became, area director, and, now she's vice president, general manager for McDonald's, handling hundreds and hundreds of McDonald's in California. So, she started, now she didn't have a hospitality degree, but she went through a business program and started with McDonald's and moved on, and now she's managing, several McDonald's. Ms. Santiago, she started actually in operations. Now she sells franchises for Hyatt hotels. Now these people all make very good money. I mean, I know some people who in the franchise world can make upwards of 500 to 600,000 a year, just part of their salary and bonuses, because each time they sign up an investor to get a Hilton contract or a Marriott contract or a Hyatt contract, they're going to get a commission, So people like her, I mean, they started in operations, but they have a marketing bent, so they got into that side of it. Mr. Canio, he runs one of the most expensive hotels in Los Angeles, the Ritz-Carlton. It's a 900-room hotel, but he's what I would say a career general manager. For him, he's been with Marriott for many years, and he's probably going to be with Marriott, but still, again, a very satisfying career, and obviously operating, a huge business. And you think about a hotel, now you think about a 900,000-room hotel, or you think about all the employees you're managing and all the different skill sets you have. You've got sales managers, you've got finance executives, you've got controllers, you've got line employees, you've got chefs and cooks in the kitchen, you've got housekeepers, you've got engineers. I mean, it's like a little city if you think about it. And the bigger the hotel, if you think about a 4,000-room hotel with thousands of employees, you're literally like a mayor of a city, and managing that. So it's a pretty, for the right kind of person, it can be a very satisfying, challenging career. But we try to bring in different executives. Mr. Jose Suarez, he's president of IHE. So this is another model. I mean, he went to Cornell. And basically he's from Puerto Rico, and now he works for an investor who has about 6 hotels in Puerto Rico, and he manages basically all his enterprises there. So, but again, he started through operations, but now, and so that's another thing about our business. If you like to travel, you like to work in different locations, you have a lot of choices. If you like resorts, you can go and work, in a resort destination. If you like city center hotels, you can work in a city center hotel. If you like, big bustling convention type places, you got Las Vegas, and you got Orlando, and so depending on your personality, I think you can make a lot of choices. And that's one of the things I tell the students too, that you should know yourself, what is it you're good at, what you like, and kind of pick things. But again, we try to give a diverse exposure to our students, to different types of managers, different types of folks, so they can start visioning what can they see themselves becoming, you know, in the future. This slide, I like to put this up here because it's very hard to define our industry. You know, all of us who've been in the industry, we know it. But, you know, when I try to tell people who, you know, say it's a degree in hospitality and tourism, it's like, you know, they can visualize a restaurant, they can visualize, but what exactly is hospitality and tourism? So if you look at this slide, basically anytime you leave home and go somewhere, our industry kicks in. Whether you're stepping out and going to a restaurant, you know, our industry kicks in. You know, if you travel to another city, you've got to get some transportation, you know, whether it's airlines or it's car rental or it's basically a limo or it's a bus, you know, our industry kicks in. You know, when you go to a destination, you've got to stay somewhere. And there's so many different types of places you can stay at. There's a hotel, a resort, now of course Airbnb as well, there's timeshare, there's convention hotel, there's floating hotels like cruise ship, you know. So if you think about it, each one of these bullet points up here is a business. And you can select any one to start it. And doesn't mean you're siloed in one. Because the core skill sets, core skill sets are very similar. You know, yes, there's nuances for each of these that are different, but the core skill sets are the same. You know, so it's a huge industry. You know, it's a lot of opportunities, and so this slide I think kind of captures some of that, and I think this gives the same picture again.
Do you guys have any questions about anything we've been talking about today? Tourism, hospitality so far, the different roles that you can take as, you know, as you go through a program like a business program. Any questions at all? We're open to them. Any questions from here too?
So I actually have some questions for them, which is on this slide, but I'm not actually hitting the bullet points because I wanted to ask them a little bit about what
the roles have reversed.
Yeah, a little bit. If they can interact, or somebody can interact, and there's going to be like 8 or 9 bullet points, which really define some of the special characteristics of, and I'm only picking the hotel business. I mean, the same things could apply to car rental or to meeting conventions or the restaurant business, or, you know, but just if you just take hotel, there's certain characteristics of a hotel business, and everybody can relate to hotels because you've stayed in a hotel, you've traveled. So if just from the top of your head as a consumer and you were thinking about hotels as a business, what are some of the things that you think are sort of special characteristics if you were running a hotel? Let's say you were a general manager, or you're a food and beverage manager of a hotel, or you're a sales manager of a hotel. I mean, all of you can think about a Hilton or a Marriott or a Hyatt or your favorite hotel that you've traveled to.
Or even the worst hotel.
Or the worst hotel.
Right? Like, I mean, that's okay too. Bad experiences at hotels.
Exactly. So if something kind of just stand out based on your, if you've not worked in a hotel, even as a consumer, what are some of those things about the hotel business that may stand out? If anybody wants to be bold and say a few words, that's great. If not, we'll roll through the slide and I can talk to you a little bit about it.
I think one of the things I like when I go to the Riverwalk, there's some really nice hotels there that will have, they'll have a bar that's very open out into the Riverwalk area, but it has that whole kind of Hispanic, Latino, mix, Tex-Mex kind of feel. And it also, the drinks and the food, they kind of fit that energy and that idea. When I go to places like Chicago or Detroit, those kinds of areas, hotels that kind of don't make me feel like I'm just enclosed in this kind of status. That same space looks the same way all the time, but maybe has a little flavor.
Sure.
And I think one of the things that culinary arts and hospitality arts people that come into this, they have a less corporate perspective on this, and they can kind of help build those ideas of having an experience and a community feeling versus just having the same free breakfast, free food that's pre-packaged and warmed up. It's that kind of thing. And I think that's where these kinds of programs build into that.
Sure. And you're absolutely right. I mean, our business is so diverse. There's space for the standard, what we call the big boxes, cookie cutter product, because basically that's an efficient product to design, build, and develop. And it's for a certain type of transient traveler who's really just looking for an in and out efficiency. They're not looking for the immersive experience. But then there's this other side of it, which, you build it around the culture, you build it around the local theme, and then build the whole thing into the design and the service. And so you're absolutely right. When I started in the business, we were just getting into the franchising world, which was really, started in the 60s by Clemens Wilson with Holiday Inn, which is his logo was the best surprise is no surprise, because when the interstate highway system came up in the US, there were no standardized products along the way. And so travelers didn't know what to expect. And so the franchise was a beautiful way to make sure that there were no surprises. But then when the lifestyle boutique movement came up in the 80s and 90s, that was more in line with what we're just talking about, which is let's have a personality for each hotel, let that personality link with the personality of the individual, and you're going to have a more curated experience when you're there. So that boutique movement has sort of taken off. And kind of extending that, the folks who started Airbnb, they sort of took that movement in 2008 and said, if you want to live like a local, we've got an experience for you. So industry absolutely is evolving based on, as people's lifestyle changes and things like that, which is what makes our business so interesting now, because it's not just this one cookie cutter type place, which is still there, but you got all these other interesting types of products that you can be part of. So
I'll tell you my latest experience. I was in Austin on the most popular street, which is the drag right by the university, and I stayed at Marriott's newest concept to beat Airbnb, right? Airbnb took a lot of business from hotels, so now they're coming back with a new competitive edge, which is very small, smart, very hip hotels. I had an event and they put me there. I didn't choose it. I would have chosen a quieter neighborhood. But as soon as I check in, I check in at a bar. It's not even a desk, it's a bar, where then I'm greeted with a complimentary cocktail.
Okay.
Right? I don't drink, so then I'm like, I'm sorry, I don't drink. They're like, oh, we have a mocktail. And I'm like, oh my God, great. Yeah, so it's like sparkly water. The lobby in the evenings turned into a dance floor. So there was a DJ Saturday night. I had an event Sunday morning, so I was like, whatever. There's a whole party going down there. And then instead of a courtyard, it is a game hall. Like the student union here, there's ping pongs, there's chairs, the swinging chairs, there's giant Jenga. And I feel like I'm in a college dorm, right? Why? I am right across UT campus. It is South by Southwest weekend, right? There's no families. There's not even an iron, guys. And I had a chef event, and right? We have to keep it crisp. So I have to ask the front desk, where do I find an iron? They're like, oh, go to our iron communal room. Oh, wow. That's where we keep the irons and the stuff to iron. So I'm ironing there with the other 30 plus person. Too hip for you? So again, right, it evolves the market because, there's a lot more single, young, financially affluent people, and that's the market. So that's something that you have to start understanding. There was also a restaurant that was open 24/7, and it was called Zombie Taco inside the hotel.
Cool.
Yeah. So again, probably not child friendly. If I had kids, I probably wouldn't stay there.
But there's a market for that, like you said. I mean, there's absolutely.
Yeah.
So do you remember the name of the brand?
It's the Bonvoy Moxie.
Bonvoy Moxie.
Moxie was a partnership with IKEA. So they said, you know what, let's get together. So all the the room look like an IKEA room.
Right. I was just going to say it's probably a Moxie because I remember the rollout of the Moxie and it was what
Yeah,
you did
so
to
that's,
find.
and it was a great stay.
Yeah.
It was very expensive,
Yeah.
$390 some a night. I didn't pay for it.
But imagine, I mean, you know, communal thing, and in terms of
Yeah.
profitability, probably pretty good because I'm sure they can do with less labor in places like that too. But you're still creating a hip experience, which is, you know, ultimately. No, it's a very, very interesting.
Someone said laundry facilities. That's where I said, you know, the iron.
Okay. Somebody said laundry facilities.
Someone said laundry
So we're going to go
facilities.
through some of these special characteristics of the hotel business, just because I want to highlight to you what I initially said when we started the presentation, that we're basically a business program. So when you go through the hospitality and tourism degree, you'll still take all the business foundation, but our pitch to universities always is that hospitality is a business, but there are special characteristics of the hospitality business that make it a little different, which is why we feel, yes, the business base is important, but they need to understand certain nuances of this business in order to be successful. So this is just about certain characteristics of the hotel business. Same thing would apply to other aspects of hospitality. So one of the things we tell people is that, you know, we're a very perishable product. So when you're selling a room, like today is April 4th, 2022, and you've got 300 room hotel, that 300 rooms on tonight will expire. It'll never come back again. So if you think about an owner or a manager or an investor who has invested in 300 rooms that has got to be sold tonight, and you don't sell 50% of it, that's 50% product that's already perished. You're never going to get this day back again. So if you think about pricing of your rooms, demand forecasting, you know, the marketing of it, keeping in mind that it's a very perishable product, you know, your organization and way of managing your business goes around this concept of perishability. And of course there's the perishability of the food, which is, you know, a different aspect, but if you just think about rooms, it's a very perishable commodity. It's a very location specific business. Location, location, location. That's what this is, the three successes of a hotel. Once you build that, you know, infrastructure, you just can't pick it up and take it to China or someplace and say, oh, the demand's not here, so I'm going to pick it up and take it somewhere else where the demand is. So that's why, as I mentioned, our business, you got the operations side, but there's a huge investment analysis side that precedes the development, and there's careers to be in that too. You know, who does the market study? Who does the feasibility study? Who makes the loan to the hotel? You know, who selects the site? You know, the design, you know, working with the city on, you know, do you have access to your facility? You know, I mean, is there going to be a new highway that's going to come up that's going to either impede or take away? You know, so all those location-specific aspects are very critical for our business, because once that investment is done, it's you know, it's done for a while. So that's another aspect. The fact that we're a fixed supply, you know, just because the demand goes up, we can't just go to a factory and add one more room. You know, we're working with a fixed supply, which means that we have to think about demand forecasting, like, you know, in order to make sure we fulfill that. Somebody said laundry facility, and that's right. It's a very capital-intensive business. In a face-to-face class, I usually ask people, what do they think it costs to build a hotel on a per room basis, and I get a variety of different answers. We don't have the interactive capability today, but if you were to build, let's say, the Embassy Suites today in McAllen, it's probably going to be somewhere in the tune of $250,000 to $300,000 per key, per room to build. You know, so if you think about, multiply that by the number of rooms, you know, and then if you take that to New York or you take that to a big city, that same kind of hotel, because of the land price, can maybe go up to $400,000, $500,000 per key. So if you multiply that by 1,000 rooms to 500 rooms, that's the kind of money that has to be invested. That is then turned over to you as a manager to run, and you've got to give this owner a return on that investment, given all these issues of perishability and fixed supply and location, competition, you know. So as a manager, you're thinking about all these different aspects, and then of course food and beverage, which at one time, way back when I started, was really just considered to be an amenity and not even a profit center. Now it's really viewed as a huge profit center, you know. So that's a big part of revenue generation. Labor intensive, I don't think so I have to talk much about that, because right now that's a huge issue. We're having a hard time trying to find people, but just managing a diverse labor force. You know, white collar employees, blue collar employees, different skill sets, different education levels, different demographic groups. You know, some hotels, you know, will hire folks with disabilities, and so, you know, you're managing a very diverse type of you know, skill set. So if you want to get into the human resources side of the business, that's a wonderful area to get into. You know, if you like dealing with people challenges, that itself can be a fantastic career. If you have a kind of a quasi-legal background, you know, you can get into the labor relations side of the hotel business, you know. And then there's certain hotels that are located in very high union environments. And so there you need that kind of understanding how unions work. And if you followed some of the news, you know, because the manufacturing sector in the U.S. is on the decline and the service sector has gone up, the unions have now targeted the hospitality businesses to really spread, you know, their union presence. I mean, Starbucks is the latest story that I'm sure you all have been reading about that they're getting into. So it's a very labor intensive. Managing that is a critical understanding. So all these relate to the types of classes that we teach, you know, and understanding the nuances of our business. High operating and financial leverage. You know, when you build a $100 million hotel, basically 70% of that is coming from a bank loan, you know. So you have a fixed interest that you have to pay every month, you know, and whether your occupancy is 80% or it's 50%, the bank is still going to want that return, right? And then the 30% has to be returned to an investor. So it's a lot of high financial and operating leverage, which again converts into management. Seasonality, you know, whether it's season by middle of the week, weekend, or it's, you know, shoulder season, high season, low season, you know, how do you project cash flows? You know, you've got to have enough buffer in your, you know, cash reserve to make sure that you have enough money to pay your bills during the low season, you know. So just because you're making money in the high season doesn't mean you spend it all. You got to keep, so, you know, keeping in mind seasonality, adjusting rates, all those things, you know. So revenue management is another class that we teach, data analytics and revenue management, because that really is an important part of that. So we just went through a huge COVID crisis, and so that's just one of the types of events that impacts our business. You know, if you're a rental property and you're renting out a space for 6 months or a year, you have a revenue income stream for a year. We're renting every day, right? So tomorrow a pandemic hits, or there's a war in Ukraine or Russia, or there's a, you know, terrorism attack, or, you know, whatever event, we're going to be immediately affected, you know. So how do you adjust for that, you know? Particularly when you're in such a high operating fixed cost environment, you know. So that's one of the things that, you know, is important to understand as well. And then related to that is, of course, we have short-term leases, which means importance of marketing. So those of you who like sales and marketing, there's a very important role to be played in our business in sales and marketing, public relations, you know, PR, that kind of stuff, because you basically have to build a brand, you've got to build a community presence, you've got to get to know people, you know. So there's just some of the things, as I said. I mean, if you can take the same thing and talk about restaurants or car rentals, or you can talk about cruise ships, and they all will have some of their nuances, which again, core is business, but we still need to understand, which is why we say you need a degree in hospitality and tourism. I can stop for a minute, and maybe this might have, if somebody had any thoughts or questions or comments on that, or didn't understand anything I just said, before I go on to the next slide.
Do we have any investors? Does anybody want to invest during hurricane season at South Padre Island? Oh, wait, that's seasonality. Hey, impact of events, 3 in 1, right? Think about these questions, guys. Think about when you're thinking of creating your own business or investing in a business, or you and your cousin want to open up a food truck and you want to put it downtown. These are the questions that you think about, right? We do have an alum that just reached out to Chef Jen, Ruben, and myself. Shadow, remember that message where she said, we are opening up Ritz-Carltons and we need students.
Wow.
And she is in Vail right now. So she's reaching out to STC for any students, right? So the demand,
for
your
the
labor
summer,
shortage.
For the summer, yeah.
For anything,
For
I think they're
anything
just
right now.
shorted.
Yeah, oh, absolutely, yeah.
And it's really interesting, right? Do you have a question?
Well, I think the thing, just to reinforce this conversation, as someone who's not in hospitality myself, but I do have a business background, it is such a unique industry that when we talk about skill sets, you can bring people in from the business industry, from corporate world, you can bring people from different backgrounds, even education into this industry, but you're starting from ground zero. When you bring students in who have gone through hospitality management, who do understand, who go through maybe a culinary arts program like we do here, where we augment the actual cooking and food preparation skills with these kinds of business related skills, you bring in talent and ability at a higher level. So students who go through, if they will invest in themselves, I can see we're investing in myself in hope, like this kind of program at UTRGV and STC, I take myself to another level when I go to a place like, when I want to go work in Vail, because I already have those skill sets. You're bringing in, helping people understand the whole big picture, which is very unique, very, very unique. It's time sensitive, it's perishable. There's factors that people who are outside in the business world don't fully have cognizance of.
True.
So there's an added benefit to going from here, starting here with us and going there with you.
Absolutely, yeah. No, you're absolutely right, and that's what this partnership, pathway generation between STC and UTRGV is fantastic, because you're already giving them the foundation plus the awareness, so they're not going in completely cold and it's a big surprise, like, oh, we didn't know we had to work, these hours, and we didn't know that, there was this type of, guests we would have to handle, or, so that's why this internships gives them that exposure. So before they make an investment, certainly I think that's a good thing. But I'll also add, one of the things I do tell our students is that yes, we would love for you to continue in the hospitality business, but we're giving you actually a business degree, and you could pretty much work in any service sector. So yes, if you don't like hotels, doesn't mean you're locked in for life. I started, my undergraduate degree was in history, and 1977, I thought I wanted to sit for, and then I studied law, and then I thought I'd sit for the competitive civil service exams and get into civil service. And then I discovered this management training program with a luxury hotel company. It started with them, and I said, this is kind of a cool place to work, and fancy people, that's what attracted me, but I didn't realize that there's more to the fancy part of it than just well-dressed people. So, but I liked it, and then as a bachelor, started in operations, worked in operations for many years, and then went and got my master's from Purdue, and then I worked in operations, but then I realized after a while I don't like the operation side, because I was married and a kid on the way, I needed a little more regular hours, so I got into consulting. So I got into the real estate side. So I was doing feasibility studies, market studies in the Caribbean and in South America, and that's when I realized that I like research. And so then from there I went to Michigan State, got my PhD in basically hotel investments. And then was teaching. So, I didn't know back when I did my history major that I would be standing in front of a group in STC starting a new program, and when I retired from Michigan State, I thought I'm retired, but I didn't. So yeah, so those things, you're right. It's just, but once you've got the core set of education, which coming to STC, going to a good college, you've got that core, which then you can take places, you can build on as you discover more about yourself, and so I think young people kind of sometimes at that stage where they're not exactly sure where they're going to be, so, but the investment in this is fantastic right now. So back to kind of hotels, when we define hotels, we basically say hotels are real estate at 2 points of time and operating businesses in between. So basically when you build a hotel or buy a hotel, it's real estate. And when you sell a hotel, it's real estate. And typically when people invest, they want to, just like stocks, they want to buy when the tide is a little low, so you can get it cheaper, hold it for 7 years, 10 years, 12 years, sell it at a good time. and then you make money on the difference, right? So that's basically the hotel business, and then you make money on the income during that time period. So basically, people in the last cycle when they sold before 2008, in 2007 they made a lot of money. If they held on to their hotel, they had to ride out the tide because 2008 we had the financial crisis.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah,
graduated there with an anthropology sociology degree, guys.
Okay, so
Now I'm a chef.
so that's basically our business. It's an operating part which is very important. So you need management companies to run places. You need brands like Marriott and Hilton to market it. And you need competent people to run the day-to-day things. So ultimately, when we think about what is it that we're selling, we're not actually creating a product. We're actually selling experiences. So every touch point, whether from the time you make the reservation to that time you leave, or you go into a restaurant, or you go into, you're basically, it's an experience, which is why it's very hard to define our business. You can say, okay, I'm making soap or shampoo, it's a tangible product. We don't have a tangible product. We have an intangible product, which is basically all about the memories, the experiences, that they're creating, and which is why that people factor becomes so important. When you think about supply chain, in a traditional industry, something is manufactured in a factory, it's put on a truck, taken to a warehouse, stored over there, then sent to a shop, and there's a supply chain there. If you think about a hospitality enterprise, it's all taking place in that same place. You're producing the product, you're basically delivering the product, you're consuming the product. So if you think in terms of management, it's pretty difficult. You've got to be constantly managing every touch point. So you don't have an inspector who's putting something on the label. Of course, in the kitchen you can do that, but just overall, right? Whether you're making a phone call or housekeeper or front desk person or doorman, or every point there is the experience being created. So you've got to develop like systems to kind of monitor that. So it's a unique thing in that. So we talk about this concept of mental baggage. So people come into a restaurant or a hotel or whatever with certain expectations, right? So, and those expectations are formed by...
I like that term, mental baggage.
Yeah.
Don't come with your mental baggage to class, everybody.
Yeah, you're checking in with real baggage and mental baggage, right? So
with real baggage and mental baggage, separate.
So you got places you stayed before, there's a brand expectation you have that this is a Marriott, so it should be like this, you've had word of mouth that this is a really nice place to be, and then you compare that to what you experience, and so to the extent you either meet or exceed that expectation, you're going to get a clap, and people will come back and tell nice things about you. If it doesn't, basically you're not going to come back and you're going to tell 10 people that that's what happened. And so it's a managing expectations and managing experiences is very important. So that's why we also say don't overpromise and underdeliver. So what is real, you should basically be able to meet that brand promise. There's something called the American Customer Satisfaction Index, which is produced by the University of Michigan, and they track several industries, including hotels, restaurants, and we've been doing some research with them for a while. And this is just one slide I'm showing you just to show the relationship between customer loyalty and customer complaints. So what this chart is really showing is that when complaints go down, typically people will stay with you. They will not switch brands. They'll want to stay with you because there's a relationship between complaints, and there's actually another aspect to it, which is handling of complaints. So to the extent they have handled complaints well, customers will tend to reward you because they said, okay, we complained, they listened, they did something about it, so we're not going to punish them. They took care of it, But if you ignore them, if you don't care, they say, well, you know what, there's other choices we have. So this just to show that kind of, because we're an experience-based business, this part of the dynamic is very, very critical. So I'm going to just run through this. This is a very special part of our business, handling complaints, which is just one very small aspect of our business because it's all about service delivery, service recovery, service management. But handling guest complaints is very, very critical, and that touches, I think, across all aspects. And it's most important because complaints don't come to you planned. You're standing behind the front desk, you're standing as a hostess, you're a waitress, you're in the kitchen. These can pop up in the middle of anywhere. You're putting out a dish, and suddenly you'll get this dish that just came back into the kitchen, and you got this heavy duty thing going on. How do you kind of handle, so teaching people about how to handle complaints is one of the things we obviously do in a few of our classes on dealing with that. So I'll just quickly go through this, just say it's probably one of the most difficult things to deal with in the hotel business. One of the reasons why employees leave our business if they don't understand that this is a business that you will get complaints, but it's also difficult because it hits you very unexpectedly. You're not prepared for it. You're running about your thing and suddenly an angry guest comes or somebody who didn't get something, then you've got to stop, pause, and take care of it. So and the other thing is, people are not used to receiving complaints. They like to complain, we all kind of, but to be at the receiving end, in our business, we have to think of it. So one of the things we do tell our students, people and in training seminars, is that if you think of them, if they're not personal, they're really opportunities. What if you didn't get the complaint? The guests would go, you'd never know, they won't come back. But if you view them as not personal, it's an opportunity to reflect on your thing. Usually, you can handle that much, much better. So when recruiters come to us, they say, the first thing they look for is attitude. They say, we can give you the training, you went to school, you got all that stuff, but if you come to us with a good attitude, all the other stuff we can teach you. So the basic attitude, the hospitality attitude, we look for that in people, whether they're entering the program or even recruiters, so that's a big part of that. And then, there's certain techniques, obviously, on how to handle complaints, listening, eye contact, all those things that you all kind of talk about as well. And then, of course, the worst type is this angry, irate guest, and so we have within the program something called a mixed reality simulation program, and we make the students go through a mixed reality simulation where there's an avatar that's got a, role that they're playing. And the student actually interacts with that avatar, and they actually have to stand in front like this here, and there's an avatar complaining about something or some behavior, and then they've got to interact with them and try to resolve that problem. So, we do a few things, interesting things like that.
We just have our student assistant Rachel do that.
Okay. Okay.
We put her.
Yeah, that's even better actually. So again, like I said, complaints are opportunities, and some of the stats that show that only 35% of guests who have unresolved complaints will return, but 85% with guests without a problem have the propensity to return. But more interestingly, those who complain and you've actually helped them, most of them will come back. So they're even rewarding you for taking care of their complaints. So which is why we keep saying, don't view complaints as personal. It's an opportunity. Reflect on your behavior. And then, we talk about this is, like I said, so many things we can talk about, different types of complaint, mechanical, attitudinal, service, unusual, and these are, it's a big business, right? Something can go wrong anywhere.
Oh,
right?
yeah, especially in the summer.
The summer.
Too hot. You want to sit, my favorite is in the summertime. Would you like to sit indoor or outdoor? Right? You can't have any more indoor seats.
So, little things, the door key doesn't work, you come after a long flight, international flight, you got all this baggage, you're tired, you go up and the darn door doesn't open right away. So these are mechanical complaints, usually a good preventive maintenance program is supposed to resolve that. The biggest problem is these attitudinal complaints. It's when employee behavior. So these are emotional, these are things that are subtle. It could be body language, it could be ignoring the guest, it could be, trying to fight fire with fire, guest is complaining and you're arguing back, or no care attitude. These are the ones that are the hardest because you either got a bad recruiting issue or you're just taking a warm body and then putting them behind a front desk and getting them to work. So it's really recruiting, training, orientation, company culture, all those things kind of come in to kind of prevent these, But if you just hire somebody, throw them behind and say, okay, sink or swim, chances are that poor person's going to be stuck with something at some point. And so these are very, very touchy complaints. And again, they say that, it costs like $10 to get the first guest into the door and only $1 to keep them coming back. So all that effort to market, to bring that guest in, and then you lose them, right? You're going to have to find another one. But if the same person keeps coming back, your investment in that guest is not as much because you've already got them in once. It's just a repeat, right? And then, of course, service delivery complaints, whether it's long wait lines or untidy rooms or phone difficulty, missed wake up call, all these things are also easy to handle because if you got a proper system in place, you got enough staffing, you have brand standards, those are things that will reduce service related complaints. But you got no system, eventually it's a supply chain, right from the point they make that first call to the time they check out. Any one of those points they're going to have an issue. Food is probably one of the things that people come, they want a good, good meal, and that's where a lot of complaints do come in as well. So I think we'll kind of cap it up over here. I mean, this is just the last slide, and this one I like to show this because, again, related to complaints. It says, I'm a nice customer, you all know me, I'm the one who never complains no matter what kind of service I get. I never kick, I never nag, I never criticize, and I wouldn't dream of making a scene. And I'm this nice customer, but what else am I? I'm also this nice customer who never comes back. So yes, you may see a nice customer, but those customers may not tell you everything, So I usually ask this question, like, if you were to say what's like the most dangerous level of service, exceptional service, terrible service, or okay service, which one would you say is the most dangerous level of service? The okay service, right? Because the excellent one, you at least have some feedback. The bad one, you'll always get feedback. The okay one, if everybody says it was okay, you really don't know what does okay mean, So it's very important to get that before they leave, So I think I had one more slide, but we kind of run out of time. But I think we'll just cap it up here. And I really appreciate your inviting me to be part of this program. So thank you. Okay, well, these are just some things I put together, some things that, I think are important for young people to kind of consider. I always tell students you need to move out of your comfort zone if you want to grow. Because it's very nice to be, and particularly I'm telling the students the valley, you need to get out of the valley a little bit, go to places, learn some skills, you can always come back here. Study abroad is another way to kind of get people out, and so move out of your comfort zone, and typically you grow that way. Sometimes when you're moving in your career, yes, you've reached a certain point and there are opportunities that you want always to move forward, but there are times sometimes that, maybe you're not ready for the next step, and sometimes you may be asked to move back one step. So that doesn't mean that that's bad. The fact they're giving you this opportunity to go back, it can also be an opportunity for you to rethink about certain things and then move forward. I mean, I've had that happen a few times. I was promoted, and then I felt I should have moved forward, but the manager didn't think that I was quite ready, so I was moved to another department, a lateral move, and I said, is he punishing me? But when I reflected on it, I said, this has actually made me stronger. So when I went back, I was more prepared, more confident. So sometimes move back may help you position for a leap forward. So I think that's a good thing to think about. Also, I just say, don't think you just did it all alone. Your parents brought you here, they supported you, your friends did. So always move forward with a sense of gratitude, because there's always somebody who's helping you. And so I think this is a fantastic thing you're doing with the mentorship program, because these are people who are going to help your students grow. And so always be grateful, thankful for what people have done for you, and move forward with that. Also, sometimes people you think are critical of your performance. They sometimes are your best friends. Because a lot of times people may. We always think, oh, you're great, you're the best, and you got, everything's wonderful, but doesn't necessarily mean that they're always your well-wishers. Sometimes parents are hard on you, right? Your teachers are hard on you, right? But they want you to get better, So people who are critical of your performance, don't always discount them, because they actually are telling you as it is. They're not afraid to tell you. Others may just want to be good friends with you and not tell you what's real. So, those critical of your performance may also be your best friend and well-wishers. In our business, you must travel. We're in the travel business. You must make a list of places you want to go, experience yourself, because if you're going to create good experience for others, you yourself need to have experienced places, things, cultures, whether it's in your city or nationally or within the state or internationally. The more you can travel, the better you're going to be as a individual, but also I find that you learn more about your culture when you interact with people and places very different from you. And again, that sort of goes to the first point with comfort zone. We all want to be within people who talk like us, look like us, you know, have the same set of values. But really, you know, when you want to understand who you really are, you need to interact with people who are very different from you. So one of the things we do a lot in my previous job at Michigan State is study abroad. So for 10 years, I would take students from the US to India, to Japan, to China, to Thailand, to Dubai. And these are all American students who, many of them didn't even have a passport. Canada was an international trip for them, you know, but it was like when they came back after a month, 6 weeks of study abroad, you know, they came back understanding themselves and their own culture before, because they suddenly saw cultures very different from theirs. So then they reflected on their own culture, you know. So I think it's a good thing to kind of keep in mind. You know, have a goal, have objectives. I always like to make plans 5 years. I'm basically come down here with a 5-year plan. So I don't know, 5 years coming up next year, who knows after that, what else? But
unless there's a pandemic.
unless there's a pandemic, yeah. Then there's, of course, everything goes out of there. But make plans, make goals. I mean, right now, as students, you may be thinking about just graduation. But, you know, when you get your first job, think about, you know, where you want to be 5 years from now. Envision where you'll be. So if you can sort of see that, you know, then you'll work towards that. Because if you have no plan, basically any road will take you there, you know. But you've got to have something you want to be in a certain point of time. Of course, along the way, it's not going to be straight path. There's going to be things along the way. But if you have that objective that, you know, you're going to be a management trainee, an assistant manager, department head, you know, at some point, if you want to be an owner, you know, how do I get to that? So having plans is critical. You know, and then I found from my personal experience, every experience is a building block for the next journey. You know, so whatever you experience today, you know, that skill set is helping you for the next one. What it is, you don't know at that point, but try to keep that where the next one is not so completely different from what you did, where you're just completely starting with nothing in your, you know, toolkit. You know, should keep building on that. Also, don't be afraid to end up in a place you never thought you would be in. Sometimes you find opportunities, and sometimes opportunities find you. You know, so sometimes, you know, you're looking for opportunities, but sometimes things come your way. So, you know, just think about it. You know, sometimes you're in front of a group, or you go to a conference and somebody presents an idea. Maybe they see something in you that you didn't know about yourself, you know, and they present you with an idea. So don't just say, oh, that's not something I don't think I can do, but maybe you could, you know. So I've seen that happen with people. They end up in places that they didn't think they would be. And then always keep your saw sharpened, you know, always learning, always improving, you know, because you never finish learning, you know. So those are some things I thought I'd, you know, share with the students.
That's a perfect closure.
And thank you for being a great audience.
Thank you so much, Dr. Singh. Again, if you guys want any more information on how to transition from your associates here to the hospitality program, which I recommend. I'm in a master's hospitality. So thank you all so much. We will see you next Monday.